Unless you're living under a rock, I'm sure you are all familiar with the recent Oceangate tragedy, an incident that resulted in the loss of 5 lives when they tried to use an experimental submersible to see the Titanic wreckage. Among this tale of horror and grief, the most tragic part is how easily this could have been prevented. After reading through all the media coverage on this, there's one main takeaway I got. Do not trust Oceangate. Oceangate is a company that was founded in 2009 that builds and provides submersibles for research and exploration. They also provide tourism to people who want to take a ride in one of these submersibles. One of the subs they've built is called Titan, which had an insane amount of safety issues that we'll get to later.
With Cyclops, what was Cyclops 2, Titan, the latest submersible that Oceangate has developed.
Titan was advertised as being lighter, more spacious, and more comfortable than any other deep diving submersible exploring the ocean today. In 2021, they started taking tourists on trips to see the Titanic in this sub for the price of $250,000 per person. The last 5 people to ever enter this sub were Stockton Rush, the CEO of Oceangate, Hamish Harding, a British businessman, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, a French explorer, Shahzada Dawood, a British-Pakistani businessman, and Suleiman Dawood, Shahzada's 19-year-old son. On June 18th, these 5 people boarded, not knowing they were walking right to their own graves. Suleiman must have had some sense of the danger he was about to be in, as he was reportedly terrified to enter the sub, but he did it anyway to please his father. They were sealed into this claustrophobia-inducing sub controlled with a wireless Logitech game controller. At the end of the sub was a 380mm viewport, which is also where they put the toilet, which would be hidden behind a black curtain.
So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music, and it's very popular.
At 8 o'clock a.m., they began their 4-kilometer descent to the Titanic wreck. 1 hour and 45 minutes later, they lost communication with the surface vessel. This wasn't an immediate red flag because, as we'll discuss later, the sub was known to frequently lose communication during their previous dives. It wasn't until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when they were scheduled to resurface, that the surface crew started getting worried. More time passed, and they knew something was wrong. At 5:40 p.m., the Coast Guard received a report about the missing sub. The next day, a full search for the missing crew was put into place. They deployed US and Canadian ships and planes to scour the area. They dropped sono buoys that could monitor to a depth of 4 kilometers, and they even asked commercial vessels for help in their search. It wasn't long before they started receiving heaps of news coverage.
We begin with an urgent search and rescue operation that is currently underway in the Atlantic Ocean.
Right now, racing the clock to try to find this missing submersible.
There are search and rescue crews now combing the icy waters.
I'm very hopeful and very positive.
At this point, no one was sure exactly what happened to them, but the assumption was that they were still alive and somehow got stuck somewhere near the wreckage. They reportedly only had between 70 and 96 hours of oxygen left. This painted a dark picture in the minds of outside spectators of this event. A nightmare scenario of 5 people trapped in a tight area in the depths of the ocean, slowly going mad with no way to communicate with the outside world or have any indication of how the rescue effort is going. Were they screaming? Crying? No one knew. As their precious oxygen supply decreased hour by hour, the worry of the families and search crew increased. The next day came around, leading the public to believe they are now at roughly 46 to 72 hours of life left. At this point, an interesting development was made in the search. The Canadian Lockheed P-3 Orion aircraft detected underwater noises in the search. Hoping this might be sounds coming from the sub, they deployed remote vehicles to search the area while the sounds were shared with US Navy experts for analysis. Although the Coast Guard never made any announcements about any specific details of these sounds, the Rolling Stone magazine reported that the sounds were described as banging sounds in the area every 30 minutes. They claimed they got this information from an internal email update sent by the Department of Homeland Security. This gave people the hope that maybe the crew is still alive and possibly on the verge of being rescued. The next day, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the US Coast Guard announced that the remote vehicle sent to search the area found nothing. We were still no closer to finding the crew, and to make matters worse, if they were still alive at this point, they'd have only about a day's worth of oxygen left.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor.
Thursday, June 22nd, was the last day of the search. A debris field was found near the Titanic wreck containing pieces of the Titan sub. According to the Coast Guard, the debris was consistent with loss of the pressure chamber and an implosion.
The debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber.
The bad news is they were gone. The good news is their passing was likely instantaneous and happened not long after they began their descent. They were probably gone before they even knew anything bad was happening.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, I've broken some rules to make this.
Like I said at the beginning of the video, the most tragic part about this is how easily this could have been prevented. The untimely passing of these 5 individuals was a result of the careless negligence of the Oceangate CEO, Stockton Rush. The Titan submersible was highly experimental and not at all safe. And Rush knew this. In fact, he actively ignored every warning he was given about this in the name of innovation. One of the many people that warned Rush about the safety hazards was a former Oceangate employee named David Lockridge. In 2018, Lockridge wrote an engineering report that said the sub needed more testing and that passengers might be endangered when it reaches extreme depths. As a result of voicing his concerns, Stockton Rush completely gaslit the guy by firing him and then suing him and his wife. They accused Lockridge of sharing confidential information, misappropriating trade secrets, and using the company for immigration assistance, then manufacturing a reason to be fired. In response, Lockridge filed a counterclaim, alleging that he was wrongfully fired. The lawsuit documents detail how Lockridge was concerned about Oceangate deciding to rely on acoustic monitoring systems that would detect popping or cracking made by the Titan's hull under pressure to find flaws. The lawsuit cites Lockridge as saying, "This was problematic because this type of acoustic analysis would only show when a component is about to fail, often milliseconds before an implosion, and would not detect any existing flaws prior to putting pressure onto the hull. Instead, he suggested it would be safer to do a full scan of the hull to detect flaws. He was told by Oceangate that they couldn't do this because no equipment existed that could perform this type of test due to the thickness of the hull. This is only the beginning of the problems though. Lockridge also stated that the passenger viewport had only been certified for depths of up to about 1.3 kilometers, not the 4 kilometers required to get to the Titanic wreck. Oceangate refused to pay for a manufacturer to build a viewport certified for 4 kilometers. Even with all that considered, I think the most concerning part of this lawsuit document is item 20, which states, "The passengers would not be aware and would not be informed of this experimental design, the lack of non-destructive testing of the hull, or that hazardous flammable materials were being used within the submersible." What the actual fuck? Another former employee of Oceangate spoke to CNN anonymously during the search for the sub and voiced similar concern to that of David Lockridge. He mentioned that the hull was 5 inches thick, even though it was supposed to be 7. Apparently, more safety concerns continued to be raised by other contractors and employees. Some even spoke directly to Stockton Rush himself and told him that Oceangate might be violating a US law relating to Coast Guard inspections. But Rush wasn't having it. He let his pride and innovation get in the way and completely dismissed all these warnings. Even Oceangate themselves says some stuff that just doesn't seem right. In a 2021 court filing, Oceangate's legal representative talked about how the sub's hull monitoring system was an unparalleled safety feature. They go on to claim that the Titan submersible was a result of 8 years of hard work, including detailed engineering and development work under a company-issued $5 million contract to the University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. But the University of Washington begs to differ. They said that their laboratory has never dealt with design or engineering for the Titan vessel. Their expertise only involved shallow water implementation. Stockton Rush himself is even on record saying things that are just blatant red flags. The Alan XL Mundo YouTube channel has a video from 2021 that shows Rush talking about the work they do at Oceangate. He talks about how he wants to be remembered as an innovator, and literally says, "I've broken some rules to make this."
And I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
A former consultant for Oceangate, Rob McCallum, also warned Rush about safety concerns through emails. He writes, "You are wanting to use a prototype, unclassed technology in a very hostile place. As much as I appreciate entrepreneurship and innovation, you are potentially putting an entire industry at risk." Rush responds to this email with, "I have grown tired of industry players who try to use a safety argument to stop innovation and new entrants from entering their small market. Since Guillermo and I started Oceangate, we've heard the baseless cries of, 'You're going to kill someone,' way too often. I take this as a serious personal insult." McCallum replies, "I think you are potentially placing yourself and your clients in a dangerous dynamic. Ironically, in your race to Titanic, you are mirroring the famous catch cry, 'She's unsinkable.' Having dived the Titanic and having stood in a coroner's court as a technical expert, it would be remiss of me not to bring this to your attention." You may have taken note of how in the first email, McCallum refers to the sub as unclassed. Having a sub classified is a process of getting a certification by an independent ship classification organization. This classification certifies that the vessel complies with relevant standards. As McCallum said, Titan is not classified. This is something that brought concern to a lot of people, including the Marine Technology Society. In a 2018 letter they wrote to Oceangate, they took issue with how the Titan submersible was advertised as meeting the DNVGL safety standards. They wrote that it does not appear that Oceangate has any intention of actually following DNVGL class rules. They also wrote, "Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by Oceangate could result in negative outcomes, from minor to catastrophic, that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry." Oceangate actually addressed the reason they are not classified in a post on their website. They said this is because this classification mainly focuses on mechanical issues and not operational ones. They say most marine accidents are a result of operator errors, not mechanical ones, so there's no need to get a classification. But I think we all know there probably is a reason why they didn't get classified. In a BBC interview, Rob McCallum talks about how the Titan sub was the only submersible in the world doing commercial work while unclassified. The reason he believes they weren't classified is because no one would sign off on the carbon fiber material they were using.
This is the only submersible in the world that's doing commercial work that was unclassed. That is to say, it's not certified by an independent agency. The reason it wasn't classed or certified is because no class society, no certifying agency is going to sign off on carbon fiber as a building product for a submersible.
It's difficult to find even a single person who says something positive about the Titan submersible. Even the past dives they did with the sub didn't always go smoothly. The sub was known to lose communication with the surface crew on several occasions, and there were multiple times where they needed to cancel trips because of the issues that came up. There's even this video that shows one particular trip where the crew actually got stuck for a bit because one of the thrusters was installed backward.
I don't know what's going on. I feel like...
Like what? Like the thrusters?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Is something going on with my thrusters? I'm thrusting and nothing's happening.
Me too, man. Me too.
Am I spinning?
Oh, wait, never mind. I take that back. They had to struggle for a while until they figured out how to reorient the controller to start moving again. As far as how the sub was able to last this long has also been discussed. A physics professor at Northeastern University named Aaron Bancil says the implosion was a result of the material used to make the sub. Most submersibles use steel, titanium, and aluminum. The Titan's hull used mostly carbon fibers, which were used because they were lighter than titanium or steel. He goes on to say that the properties of carbon fibers for deep-sea applications are not well understood yet. It can just crack and break suddenly. It would appear that the sub had been exposed to so much water pressure so many times that eventually the material just gave out. It's genuinely infuriating that this whole incident could have been prevented if it weren't for Stockton Rush's complete negligence for safety protocols in the name of innovation. But one thing that I will say is that Rush must have genuinely believed in what he was doing. He wouldn't have been on that sub with those passengers if he didn't. He let his ego blind him, and as a result, he went down with his own creation. And worse yet, he brought 4 other people down with him. He said in an earlier interview that he wanted to be remembered, and he will. Just not in the way that he had imagined. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the flip side. YouTuber Gotham Chess, known for his chess content, has recently found himself in a strange predicament. His last few videos have taken place in a strangely unfamiliar location. Instead of his home that we're used to, we now see a crude background concealing his whereabouts. His fans have become concerned about his well-being, pleading him to give us a sign if he's being held hostage. As you can see from the following clips, Gotham Chess has been subtly giving us cries for help from his captor.
I am in a prison-style setup. I'm in a prison somewhere and somebody is forcing me to record videos.
In his most recent video, we see what appears to be his captor menacingly staring at him, making sure he no longer calls out for help. This is the Gotham Chess hostage analysis. No, I'm just kidding. I just made a shitpost comment on one of his videos and I wanted to follow up. Have a good one, guys.
you.